want to say something to people. I'm not the hugest fan of subcutaneous injections. I just think there are better ways to inject testosterone. Well, predominantly intramuscularly. You know, how it's supposed to be injected. We're going to talk about a couple different anecdotals today, but one specific guy who actually mentioned to be me by name on the testosterone subreddit about a month ago, where a guy took my advice to just switch from what was, I think he was honestly doing like shallow intramuscular with an insulin syringe. And yeah, you know, listen, if you're lean enough, that's going to hit the muscle, right? I mean, we've had like MRIs and sort of imaging studies or imaging examples of people doing this. And yeah, you're going to reach the muscle if you're lean enough. But you might not always reach the muscle with a shallow intramuscular injection. And some people are just going to find in these weird cases where they just don't respond to infrequent injections. They can do a bolus shot, but then they feel tired at day 3.5. Even if it's a lot, they're metabolizing the testosterone too quickly. They're going to probably have to inject daily or every other day, and it's going to have to be deep intramuscular. This guy was having dip problems and libido problems and finally took my advice to just inject deep intramuscular, albeit he's doing it on a very frequent basis, and then solved his TRT problems. Shallow IM can work for you as long as you're hitting the muscle, and this makes the biggest difference. The biggest difference. We're going to go through some anecdotals of people switching from intramuscular back to Subq or to Subq and losing some of the benefits of TRT. The moment they switch back to an intramuscular injection, even if it's a shallow intramuscular injection and presumably they're getting the muscle, everything resolves. No symptoms anymore, and the TRT experience comes back. In the meantime, look, Cortex Labs is a TRT guidance, sexual dysfunction resolution, and performance optimization company specializing in a range of different products, ranging from the source list, again, any anabolic you can think of, including 20% DHT, which is crucial for some people to fix their protocols. You can get that at livecortex.com. Secondarily, my history is in the pharmacology of nootropics, consulting CEOs after 15 years of doing that. I built one. It's called Torque. It is very powerful. You get it down in the description of this video. Lastly, I'm a coach on TRT. TRT protocol restructuring, as well as resolving sexual dysfunction. We've got one-off calls with protocol generations and ongoing packages where you can work with me one-on-one for a long period of time. You can hire me for any of that stuff in under a minute at livecortex.com. All right, let's go to this one first, boys. Shall we? Finally crack the code on consistent erections on TRT. The too long don't read is deep intramuscular daily injections gave me my boners back. Guy goes, all right, so I wanted to share my experience with you and hopefully it'll help somebody. I went on TRT self-prescribed, I must say, because my levels were fine on paper but felt like shit. Point within a point, right? I mean, sometimes your numbers look fine, but you feel like shit and you're trying to figure out why. But when you get whatever hormone markers up, you start feeling amazing again. So I'm on TRT 3 years, started out with test enanthate daily injection at 200 milligrams a week. So that's like 28 milligrams a day or something. And he was doing it with an insulin syringe, 0.5 inches. A regular insulin syringe is 29 gauge. First month was good. Libido and erections, confidence was up. But after a month, erections were gone. Libido took a dive. Energy was high and I had motivation and mood was good, but sexual system was gone. Started to play with my dose and try to tweak it with no avail. And then I thought something in my diet and blah, blah, blah. None of that stuff works, of course. It's nothing else, boys. It's the test. It's the administration method. It's estrogen. It's the basics always. Basically, after a while, I just accepted it and used Cialis as a crutch. Then he goes, about 2 months ago, after starting watching the Cortex Labs video, I think I know that guy. Isn't that funny guy with the beard? Which talked a lot about fixing sexual function on TRT. Watched his videos, and one of them talked about maybe some guys just need a higher peak of test and E2 for their sexual function and less frequent injections. Yeah, that does work for people. So I tried it. I injected about 100 milligrams of test, enanthate, 1-inch needle, 25 gauge, and the next morning I had morning wood, but a weak one. So I thought I was on the right track. Finally, after about a month, erection stayed the same. So not better, not worse, but certainly better than like injecting 28 milligrams a day with a shallow intramuscular, insulin syringe. Guy changed the protocol and got worse no matter if I dosed higher or lower on the 200 milligrams a week split into 100 milligrams every 3.5 days. But then I said to myself, this guy's giving us his whole thought process here. My boners are, something is making my boners better. What is it? So right? Isolating exactly in this protocol while things aren't great, why are things better? He goes, so I had to go back to daily injections because my my work motivation has gone down in every 3.5 days. That can happen. Some people just metabolize testosterone very quickly, or, you know, it peaks and then something happens, estradiol comes up, maybe some desensitization of the receptors. It's unlikely, but such things can happen. He goes, but now I injected with a 1-inch 25 gauge needle. You can find those. In fact, I'm going to give you a better strategy here in a second. And I thought maybe the deep intramuscular is what makes the difference. The next night of injection, okay, so this is daily injections now, right? The guy's on, 28 milligrams a week or 28 milligrams a day or so. Daily injection, he's piercing the muscle every day. Okay, so you got to think about that, but with a 1-inch 25 gauge needle. Next night after injection, I had a strong erection, and morning after, which I hoped this continues. And 2 weeks after, my energy's back, feel confident, dick works. You definitely want your dick to work. I would have never thought about changing from 1/2 inch to a 1 inch would make such a difference until I saw Ryan's YouTube videos. My theory is that deep intramuscular gives me a better test to E ratio and better absorption. Hope this helps someone. It's not just the small things. Let's break this down. So in this case, right? Listen, you can steroid plot. Okay, let's go to the cycle planner over here for a second. This is steroidplanner.com. Steroid plotter's actually down. You could plot this out like a daily injection. I've got 19 milligrams in here. That's like if you're doing insulin syringes, that would be or correction, let me do 18 milligrams. If you're doing insulin syringes, that would be 9 units per day. Now, what this assumes an intramuscular injection. The steroid plotting websites are not built for subcutaneous injections. Why is that? Well, because intramuscular is how you inject testosterone. It always has been. It's always going to be. And in this case, even with daily injections of 18 milligrams, but doing it intramuscularly, you have a peak and you have a trough in terms of release in milligrams per day. You're not going to constantly release what the highest point is here at 13 or whatever milligrams. You're going to get down to 11.74 milligrams if that's the lowest. Yeah, that's basically the lowest, right? So you have a mini peak and you have a mini trough here. Now, if you were to do this Subq, okay, or in the case of shallow intramuscular and not actually hitting the muscle and not getting deep IM, or at least in the muscle, you could totally miss the muscle, the shallow IM. Again, I'm going to give you some syringes in a second that work much better for this if you have to do daily injections. But if you map this out and these websites actually accounted for Subq, it wouldn't look like this. It would look like a straight line across. Okay? Because you're just steady state releasing testosterone and you think that's good and people think that's good. But here's the thing. The way that we metabolize testosterone in the muscle is much different because it's highly vascular tissue. And the crazy thing is you'll find people with pretty much the same blood levels when they go and test, whether it's test or estradiol or both on Subq versus shallow intramuscular. But the effects with pretty much the same numbers, right? And the same fucking dose and injecting daily end up being differently. Why is that? I'll tell you why. Because testosterone injected into the muscle absorbs faster. That's it. It's all stuff we pretty much know, but people need to take this into account when they're trying to factor in how testosterone affects their system. It just so happened that, the guy had done shallow intramuscular, same dose, 28, 29 milligrams a day, and shit wasn't good. But then same exact dose. All right, nothing changed on the dose, boys. Deep intramuscular injection, and then the benefits of TRT are there. I see this all the time. I just want to emphasize for people, if you're having problems on Subq especially, right? Because it's extravascular tissue, man. There's no vasculature in that tissue. So the uptake's going to be completely different, slower, and it might not get you in the right ratios where you need to be. Switch to shallow IM if you're going to have to do daily, or switch to deep intramuscular, fucking pin the muscle. If you're worried about scar tissue, get off TRT and go be a fucking girl and go from there. Let me quick show you something. This here, okay, is an easy touch 100 unit insulin syringe. Okay. So for those of you that like the 100 unit insulin syringe, because you can measure out your test sip or your test NFA dose easier there. Because if you have a 3 mil syringe or, it's harder. It seems like such a little amount of tests if you're injecting every day, and it's actually hard to get accurate, but you get super accurate on these. But this is a 5/8 inch 27 gauge. So you don't even fucking feel it. Insulin syringe. This is the answer. This insulin syringe is the answer in these cases, right? Because 5/8, if you're injecting in the ventroglute or the actual glute or the delt, this syringe is the answer to problems with Subq. and problems with shallow intramuscular. And the greatest thing about this right here in this whole context of Subq not doing it, shallow intramuscular not quite doing it for some, it's going to do it for some. You got to be real lean. You got to hit the muscle, boys. You know what that feels like when it hits the muscle. There's a sort of dull pain feeling, a very dull minor pain. Not significant, but you know it's in the muscle. Whereas Subq, yeah, it feels totally different when you're injecting. But the solution here is to get 5/8 inch insulin syringes. Dude, it's honestly the best. Yes, you do have to hunt for these. I'm going to put the link for this in the description of this video so people can just go get it. You know, honestly, this is going to be the solution for a lot of people. Remember, the overarching point I want to make here is that you can't listen to the guys on Reddit that say, well, the blood levels are the same. Right? You're doing Subq, we'll look at the studies. I've always looked at that and been like, well, my experience tells me different. My client's experience tell me different. Something is different here. There is a discrepancy that I need to identify. And over the years, what I found is that the systemic absorption of an intramuscular injection, even if it's done daily, which usually helps to keep estradiol like not going crazy or not peaking too high and therefore causing dick problems, is just better. It's just better. You know what your body's not equipped for? Let me tell you what your body's not equipped for. And things are probably going to go wrong. And I'm not sure why people are confused about this. Your body's not equipped for steady state, super steady state testosterone. Even as a natural in the morning, you peak. You peak and then you start to trough throughout the day while still having some of the androgen receptor mediated gene transcription, which gives you the androgenic and the anabolic effects throughout the day. So to assume that you could just inject in your belly fat or something for the amount of tests that we need, we're designed for that peak and trough. We're designed for the peak and trough. This is why people will go to every 3.5 days, every 5 days. If they can tolerate once a week, not everyone can do that. But if they can do that, well, then libido and erections come back. They feel fucking amazing and everything works great. I'll leave you with one of these, other tricky anecdotals, but which illustrates my point exactly. This is titled Subq versus Shallow IM Delt. Guy goes, I just finally figured out how to give myself Subq shots without the painful, itchy red welts that I've had before. Subq can cause that for some people. 0 issues with shallow IM delts. So he's been doing shallow IM before, but then he was like, oh, maybe I'll do Subq, maybe it's better, whatever. The Reddit gospel got him. Guy goes, so 6 weeks of Subq, I felt like I wasn't getting the same sense of well-being that I had with the shallow IM shots. My erections and libido were down. I couldn't wait to go back on IM shots, convinced that my levels must have dropped by half, but I stuck it out. I did my labs before going back on the intramuscular shots, and the results were shocking. Total test 1176, boys. Yeah, you're walking around super physiologic, man. You have higher levels than most fucking naturals at 1,176 nanograms per deciliter total test. Free test 243. Yeah, I mean, you're right at the top of the reference range there. SHBG 36. This is fine. These numbers should be good. Estradiol shouldn't be in some troubling place where it's causing dick problems or libido issues or whatever. Being emotional when you're watching fucking movies. Those numbers look great. Guy was on Subq. Libido and erections went away. Wasn't feeling great. Finally went back to IM, which is shallow intramuscular in this case. Literally the next day, I felt better. He goes, it's a total mystery to me why I didn't feel great on Subq with those numbers. Any thoughts on why? One of the reasons this happened is what happened to Space Wiener. Space Wiener. Okay, dude. All right. Guy goes, same as me. I felt like crap when I did Subq. My test was also lower. Okay, so this happens to people as well. And E2 was higher. This happens all the time, dude. If you have a full glass of water and there's a small little hole in the bottom where a little can drip out each day, but you're constantly adding Subq steady state water to that water glass, what's going to happen? It's not going to empty, which means you're never going to stop aromatizing. People need to think about this. These are the more detailed, sort of closer 5,000 foot view, nuanced looks at what's happening pharmacologically relative to testosterone injections. You don't stop aromatizing that way. And you don't really get a substantial peak in anything, which includes test and DHT, which you need. People end up with higher E2 and lower test, or the same amount of test with higher E2. Of course, that's going to skew the outcome and the subjective effects of testosterone. Guy goes, shallow IM in the delts and ventroglute, much better. All right, I'm gonna put the link down in the description of this video for these 5/8 inch easy touch 100-unit insulin syringes. Just get these. You know, if you have to inject daily because you can't tolerate tests any other way, people have all manner of different reactions to testosterone, whether it's like they had COVID, they got the COVID vaccine, which tends to trigger histaminergic reactions for sometimes years to come, and an ongoing syndrome that makes their physiology a little weird in response to certain agents. So they can't, they can't inject a lot at once, or they can't inject, every 3 days or whatever. There are other things, other conditions, other problems that people might have with that. If you have to inject daily, do it, but use get into the muscle with it, with a 5/8 inch. I think that's the safest bet, because you're going to miss the muscle sometimes with the 1/2 inch needles, right? And you're kind of going to go Subq, maybe very, very shallow intramuscular. You want it as deep as possible in the muscle. 5/8 inch needle is definitely going to get you there. Inject it straight in the glute, right in the glute or the delt. You're going to be golden, But remember, boys, like it's not as straightforward as it seems. Even if the bloods are comparable, which they are in the Subq studies, and this is what confuses people. The bloods can be comparable all you want. All they want on Subq versus an intramuscular doing daily or whatever it ends up being. But internally, the peak and the trough of testosterone and how that influences estrogen dynamics is going to be different despite similar total test numbers. And no one's talking about this, but I've been seeing it for years. Hope that makes sense. If you're having problems on Subq or shallow IM, get yourself some 5/8 inch. Maybe get 1 inch, bite the bullet. You're injecting the muscle, so you're going to have some scar tissue. Okay, grow the fuck up. What do you want, right? Trade off there. But otherwise, you got pretty high gauge, thin 5/8 inch insulin needles, and that will solve the problem and leave you with minimal scar tissue. Remember, I'm the guy that's deep into the nuance of these things, because every day I'm getting sexual dysfunction, PFS, issues with TRT, issues with dosing of TRT. Clients every day for the past many years and forever in the time continuum. I've had to get down to the details of this, and I'm here to break it down and show people what's really going on with TRT. All right, as I said at the beginning, this is what I do. I'm a coach on TRT protocol restructuring, one of the best coaches I would say. Obviously, I'm biased on the planet for this because I've seen everything. I've seen every situation. You can hire me for a TRT protocol redesign, which is I'll have a 45-minute fact-finding call with you, figure out really the root of your issues on TRT, and reconstruct your entire protocol to make it work for you. But for serious issues, especially sexual dysfunction, erection issues, libido issues, otherwise issues regarding HRT or not on HRT, induced by SSRIs, induced by certain drugs, we're going to need time. We're going to need multiple protocol changes. We might need some DHT. We might need some Masteron. We got longer one-on-one packages for that. If you have the budget, hire me. If you're a serious individual, hire me. We will get to the bottom of it. 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, or 1 year ongoing package. You can hire me for that stuff in under a minute at livecortex.com. If you need to go at this by yourself, just buy the source list. Yeah, it's got everything, including high-potency DHT gel, which is a savior in many people's protocols, but also test of all esters, other anabolic compounds, HCG for cheapo, Proviron, oral DHT, anything you can think of, you can get in the source list. It is down in the description of this video. If you need a nootropic stack that is far better than Red Bull or any energy drink you've ever taken, get Torque. I'm the guy that consulted big banks and big companies and big venture capitalists, the CEOs of these companies, the CFOs of these companies on brain performance. After all that experience, I built a nootropic. You can buy it down in the description of this video. All right. Brother, it has been an absolute pleasure hanging out with you. I hope you had a great weekend. I hope you have a great week moving forward. I hope those of you that are in colder climates are ready for the spring. I know I certainly am. Like the video, makes a huge difference. You want to repay me for the content we've done. I don't ask for much, but it would really make a huge difference and mean a lot to me if you would just hit the like button. Otherwise, sub to the channel. Many more breakdowns like this before 4 years and forever in the time continuum. I'd love to have you as a sub. Kick ass, rock on, and I'll talk to you boys in the next one.